The overview is back and we're talking about Torment, Tides of Numenera. Now, Tides of Numenera is a game that I played for a very long time before I even understood exactly what I liked about it. So a little bit about the story. You play as a cast-off of a changing god who's always jumping into different bodies and casting them off after he jumps into another body. So you play as one of the characters that have fallen from the sky and needs to try to figure out just what the hell and who the hell he is. Now they're saying, another game with a guy with amnesia, but it's a little bit different than that. Amnesia plays a big part in the game if you wanted to, or otherwise you don't really even have to care if you're the cast off of the changing god or not. So the real story behind Tides of Numenera is actually that the game is a fully fleshed out world. Each character has their own distinct background and they'll let you know in game. Like, you'll sit there for about 10 minutes talking to somebody about their entire lifestyle, what they look like, what their people are like. I mean, this game has a variety of races. And even though it uses this old school kind of Pillars of Eternity look, the game gives you big time descriptions to let you know exactly what and who you're talking to. So here's a warning. If you don't like text, there's going to be a lot of text. It's almost text overload. You're basically reading a book when you're playing Tides of Numenera. And these characters don't always directly relate to quests. Sometimes they'll just have these long and interesting stories that just have to do with their lives. And you'll sit there like you're reading a book and just engrossing yourself in their lifestyles. And that's kind of what makes Tides of Numenera different from various RPGs that are out in the market today. I mean, we have tons of classical RPGs that have met a resurgence in the PC era, where you got Pillars of Eternity, you have Torment, not Torment, but Tyranny, and all those games like that. But this one is really deep in the RPG world. Like, it gives you the chance to really understand the characters you're speaking to, or to change their lives and affect them. Now, unlike games like Mass Effect where you can play as a Paragon or a Renegade, this game, it just takes it into various avenues of how much of a dick or how much of a nice person you want to be. Like, some of the examples is that you can bring a ghost back to life, and you can use one of your powers, which is an ability that the cast-off has, and you can just pull the person into reality. But at the end, that person will kind of suffer a horrible demise because you did it the easy way. Or there's this idea that you can help out a robot that wants to have children. So it's going to try to have children, but the only way for it to have children is that you take its energy to give to the children and it dies. But this affects the lives of the people that have been friends with the robot for a long time. So it's like this thing where it's give and take sometimes, and other times it's just like, oh, well, maybe I would benefit from it, but it would be a poor choice and a horrible thing to do. And Tides of Numenera has tons of these kind of choices in the game. When I first started playing, I didn't quite understand the mechanics because the game gives you a certain amount of skill points, and you get to use these skill points per day. So when you use the points and they go all the way down to 0, you're kind of stuck in the, oh man, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get to the next part of this, or how to solve this without having to get into a fight, or etc, etc. So I had a real tough time when I first started playing it, and I almost threw it in the trash. Not threw it in the trash, but uninstalled it and was pissed at it because I didn't quite get what the hell it wanted me to do. But I started over after 5 hours or so, and I made a new character. I made a new character with high intelligence, and it can read minds. And this kind of changed the game's complete dynamic for me. I was able to understand what people were thinking, and some people actually knew I was like a mind reader, and they were like, you don't get in my brain. So there were a lot of cool little elements that this game throws at you. So after I figured that out, I was able to use my party and my character to kind of keep my points high enough so I would always be able to persuade or intimidate somebody when it was necessary, or study lore, etc, etc. There's a roll check for everything. It's kind of like D&D. You always have to roll check to make sure that you can pass. But the game is so crazy that sometimes you just want to stop, save, and then see how the outcome would change. And it happens so much because there's so many selections of how bad you can be. You can be a bad guy and just be like, man, fuck this guy. Or you could just be like, hey, I want to be nice. And then there are the times where you can just get into straight up combat. And while a majority of things are solved by using the intellect and persuasion, etc., you can smash things, you can punch out people, you can just attack if you want to. But don't go into this game expecting it to be so combat heavy. Like, I spent at least 12 hours not really fighting anything. Like, there's a couple initial fights, one you can skip, one that's a tutorial, and then there's one that's way later in the game if you're playing a side quest. And pretty much I didn't do a lot of fighting, and it wasn't a big deal until I had to fight, and then I was like, oh my god, I don't have the skills to really fight for my main character. But luckily I had good companions who picked up the slack and was able to get me through the combat situation. And combat is simple. You do a turn-based kind of situation where you can move your character to certain distances and attack and flank enemies, or you can select different skills that have a higher impact on the enemies, but you also lose skill points for doing them. And because you use effort in this game, the more effort you use, the more skill points you use, but the more damage you'll do. So it's up to you to kind of balance between finishing a guy and waiting until the next turn to get their next hit in. Don't get me wrong, the combat is fun, but the real meat and bones of this game is dialogue and the world itself. They really built a world here. In Exile did a fantastic job building this world that you just want to seek out everything. Like, I ran out of side quests in the first town, and I was like, no, I want more. And I was actively talking to different characters just to try to find new things to do. And it's that kind of game. Once you get engrossed in it, once you understand its gameplay mechanics, you're in. And I've never played the original Torment game, so now I want to play that after I finish this. But I am totally locked into this game. So if you are into RPGs and RPGs that aren't just like Mass Effect-ish. I mean, I like Mass Effect, but Mass Effect is every 5 minutes you're going to be in combat, because right after dialogue you'll choose something and then you're going to fight somebody. If you're looking for that, this is not the game for you. This is more of a deep kind of game that wants to dig into your brain and wants you to use your brain, because they have plenty of puzzles and plenty of cool elements that make it vastly different than any RPG out on the market. Now, it's using the Pillars of Eternity engine, which isn't really that pretty, but it does a good job of capturing classic isometric PC visuals. But Tides of Numenera does a good enough job that it shapes its world by its designs. It probably does the best job at showing us exactly how crazy its mystical land is. So they have these different areas where you disappear into the labyrinth, where there's a dream world, and then they have just crazily designed dungeons. I guess the best thing I would say that it does is it creates a great atmosphere of a world that you wouldn't be able to understand. Like, there's a lot of ruins and different kind of architecture that wouldn't make sense to us, but apparently it makes total sense to all the people that live in this world. And it scatters the people in the towns in proper ways. Like, they go about their business like normal people. They walk around, they buy stuff at the shop. You'll see people standing in line for shops and stuff like that. So it does an ideal job of creating this fantasy world that it describes so well, and that'll help you kind of ignore the more simplistic character models that they have in the game. This is one of the best games to play this year if you're into RPGs and you're into deep stories, because this sci-fi world is nuts and I love it. So Tides of Numenera is fantastic. If you can, pick it up immediately. Like I said, text heavy, not a lot of voice acting. Stay away from it if you don't like that. Okay guys, I'll see you next time. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you appreciated this non-scripted review.